What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my review of Atom RPG Trudograd. Now, I'll be mixing up my format a bit for this particular review, as this is a standalone expansion to Atom RPG. Atom RPG was a very prominent indie CRPG that I finally got around to reviewing recently, and I decided to break Trudograd off into a separate video, and here we are. But as a result of that, if you have questions about Atom RPG as a whole, I will refer you to my previous review, and I'll link that down below, as I'm not going to be explaining a lot of the basics, if you will, like I said, mixing up my format. And we're going to talk a bit about the story of this expansion, what it does well, etc. As a result, minor spoilers for the first game, by the way. So, talking about the story and where the expansion picks up, the expansion takes place about 2 years after the original game in the city of Trudograd. Who would have guessed? Now, at the end of the last game, our organization that our main character works for, the Atom organization, discovered that there is an asteroid on a collision path with Earth expected to hit the Earth in about 15 years, I believe it was, and that frankly, because of the post-apocalyptic nature of Atom RPG, the world simply was not equipped to deal with, and Earth likely wouldn't survive at all if this asteroid hits. However, the Atom organization has uncovered a means for a potential solution. They have found evidence of a working railgun in the city of Trudograd that could potentially shoot down this asteroid long before it gets here. Due to your success from the first game, they send you on a mission to find and secure this railgun. And that's pretty much where the story of Trudograd picks up, and all of the game, which is rather short, revolves around you finding this thing. While the game is a good bit shorter than the original, as you might imagine, nonetheless, they managed to pack it full of choices and interesting missions. There's a few factions you can join that will actually kind of change up how the game plays out. And there's a lot of stuff that you can choose to get involved in. And that's probably my biggest takeaway from Trudograd, is that whereas parts of the base game could feel very disconnected, such as the story, it was possible to kind of get yourself into a situation where there was just no way forward, or it felt like you couldn't find the way forward. With Trudograd, even in its relatively short runtime, like probably 15 to 20 hours, I would say, provided you're not just rushing the main story, the time that you're spending with this title will see you potentially joining a few different factions, like I mentioned. Some of those factions actually have unique quests. All of the side quests themselves have just a bunch more options for potential completion. In fact, a lot of the achievements for Trudograd are actually just very extreme ways that you can solve an individual quest, which was kind of fun, to be honest. But something that they did really well in that regard is that in the base game and a lot of other games, a lot of the skill checks were simply a pass or a fail. And as such, the higher your stats, the better, because you were more likely to pass something. Well, in Trudograd, they actually opened up options that are only available if you have under a certain amount of, say, strength or dexterity or something. So in a lot of cases, there are options only available to you if your character has a low stat or attribute, which goes a long way for making the less popular, if you will, builds feel much more interesting as a result. But from there, let's talk about some of the character systems that they sort of overhauled a little bit. And that's mostly the abilities and the skills. So the abilities saw a ton of expansion, actually. This is probably the biggest change in terms of your character creation, if you will. So you start Trudograd at level 15, provided you didn't import a character. That said, the import system is a bit finicky, so I could see a lot of people just starting with a fresh character on this one. But regardless, the abilities in Trudograd saw a huge expansion. I would say there's probably double or triple the potential options. A lot of them do much more interesting things. For instance, a lot of the abilities in the base game were just like, here's plus to this thing. Whereas in Trudograd, it's like, here's plus to this thing in a certain situation, or with diminishing returns, and overall they're just more interesting and there's more choice. But beyond that, the skills themselves actually also saw a bit of a revamp. In the base game, your skills could go to 199. However, you stopped seeing a benefit after about 150, and that was pretty much it. However, in Trudograd here, we see our abilities have the potential to go to 299, and mousing over them, it will actually show us several milestones our character can reach that will then provide that skill with extra benefits. And all of those things kind of varied up the combat a little bit. Now, I will say some of that stuff does fall a little flat when you get the special armor, which is part of the expansion, which is basically just power armor, because it really feels like a lot of the combat encounters in Trudograd were built with the power armor in mind, which makes sense a little bit. You know, it's the new thing, but still. Now, without getting too spoilery, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the locations themselves in Trudograd. So there's the obvious visual upgrade from one game to the next. Trudograd simply looks a lot better than the base game. But another thing that I really noticed was that the locations themselves that you enter are significantly more dense in terms of things that you can find. Like there's items laying around, there's just more stuff going on in the locations, there's more people. A lot of them have quests, even if they're small, attached to them, and you can tell that the devs really tried to pack as much content into each area as they possibly could. And as a result, Trudograd is small, but packs a pretty big punch simply because of how much content there is here, even given the relatively short runtime. Now, that comes with one pretty big drawback, in my opinion, and that is simply that while Trudograd does a great many things significantly better than the base game, I would say the fact that this is a standalone expansion should pretty much be ignored. I simply would not play this if you have not played the base game, and that's largely because this is a sort of high-level adventure, and if you don't learn the basics from the base game, you're probably going to fire this up and have a bad time. Which is a shame because there's a lot to love here, but again, it's very hard to enjoy Trudograd and all the improvements it brought if you didn't play through the first title. So again, while it's a standalone expansion, I simply would not play this until you've played the base game. But overall, for a short and sweet conclusion, Trudograd as a standalone expansion is available on Steam for about $11, and for $11 you're getting a ton of game, even if, again, wouldn't really touch it until you've played the base game. Overall though, Trudograd is a remarkable step up from the base game, and with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.